just waiting for Michael also to join in. Okay, so I guess we'll start. We have one more person to join in, and before that, I think I'll give a little bit of an introduction of the panel. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How is the session so far? Going good, yeah? So I thought I'll just start asking the question, how many of you guys are worried about your jobs moving forward? How many of you are IT professionals around here? How many are worried about your jobs? I'm sorry. I just asked the question. Yeah, there's been a lot of hue and cry in the recent past. A lot of articles, bad press in the newspapers about how the IT sector in India is going to have the Kodak moment by which they meant how Kodak got destroyed as a company by not embracing the digital photographic revolution. So I thought, we have some very eminent panelists here who have got deep technological and management expertise, and we have the IT secretary representing the government, and we would probably brainstorm a little bit about how the jobs are going to transform in the next 5 to 10 years, and how do we reskill, upskill ourselves to take care of that fourth industrial revolution, as they call it. So let me introduce myself. My name is Anup Ambika. I actually founded a company called Creera Solutions in 2004 in Technopark, and then ran that company for 13 years, and now started a new company called Clap Research, which kind of touch upon some of these areas that we are going to talk about. I'm going to give you a brief introduction of the panel here. We have Mr. M. Shivashankar, IAS, who is the IT Secretary of the State and also Officer on Special Duty to the Chief Minister. He's a big proponent of exponential technologies and how we could create markets out of the exponential technologies that we might embrace as part of this revolution. I don't know how many of you have heard Michael in the morning. Yeah, so I don't think he needs much of an introduction here. He's our blockchain expert today, who has come all the way from Canada. We have Professor Nandini Vaidyanathan. Again, she had a very interesting session just completed half an hour back. I don't think she needs much of an introduction. She's a mentor and she's been an academician. And I was just waiting there thinking that there'll be a lot more questions to her because she was talking about so many good brands that have etched a memory in our mind. We have Dr. Ashraf from IITMK. He's a PhD in machine learning, and he's a good blend of what I call the industry as well as the academic experience. And then we have Rahul Anex Panikar, again a PhD from Stanford. Yeah. And he's created Embrace, which is one of the most innovative social enterprises that I've seen coming out of Kerala. And let's give a warm welcome to all our panelists here. So one of the biggest things that we are all worried about is the jobs and the technologies that are going to come, and how we are going to be how we are going to be affected by this transformation, right? So I'm going to pass it on to Nandini here, who's going to talk about and I'm going to go with the ladies first saying here. How should people as users, adopters, entrepreneurs be ready for this transformation? What do you think is going to happen in the next probably 5 to 10 years?
I think fundamentally the world we understand as it exists today is going to change. The way we do a lot of things have already begun to change. You've sat through my session, and that's exactly what I walked you through, how the world is going to be disrupted. How our own behavior, therefore, if we have to survive, has to be necessarily disrupted, right? So in the next 5 years, I think you will see this kind of a disruption to continue. Possibly the one big difference is it's going to go into areas which up until now we considered private, our personal space. I think it is going to erode that personal space in that sense of the term. So what do entrepreneurs have to look at? Let me break it up into entrepreneurs and employees. What do entrepreneurs have to do to remain relevant? I think the element of differentiation, even if they're borrowing, cut, paste an idea from their Western counterparts, I don't think is going to work even with the most state-of-the-art technology, unless they take on board the cultural context. All the more, I think it will become necessary that you marry the technology with your cultural context. That's for the entrepreneurs. For the employees, this attitude of this is the way we are like that only, take it or leave it, I think has already begun to go out of the window, and I think will go out of the window. If you don't upskill yourself, if you are not nimble-footed, if you don't change yourself, I doubt you will even be considered by the GDP, whatever. You'll become completely irrelevant. So I think it's a moot point. I think it's stupid to ask what will change. I think the fundamental premise is things are bloody gonna change. There's no two ways about it. And you better change yourself if you want to stay in the race. That's how I would look at it.
While change is imminent, it also becomes important that we have avenues which will expose us to those changes, right? And one of the avenues that we will all find is probably the educational institutions, because most of these innovations usually come from academical institutions or research institutions in most part of the world. So that is where I will divide this question between IT Secretary and Dr. Ashraf about what is government going to do? Because in one way, I see this as an opportunity for the state of Kerala. We are only 1% when it comes to the traditional IT exports of the entire country, right? So here is an opportunity for us to build a knowledge ecosystem in the state, considering the mathematical and the statistical and the logical proficiency that the people in the state has. What is the government going to do, or what has the government already done, which will enable people to embrace these new changes?
I thought it was being divided between me and
Yes, it
Ashraf.
is, but you can.
Okay. Ever since I took charge in IT here, I have always, every person who comes and meet me talks about disruption, change, and imminent change, and world is going to change. So every day I walk into my office, I just look around, what has changed, what has changed. Except the potted plant in my room, nothing seems to have changed. I also hope there is some change. But very seriously, now let us look at it at three levels. One, change has always been there. How many of you are from Kerala? I believe most of you are from Kerala. Okay. When I was perhaps your age, there was a movie which was screened here. It was one of those milestone movies. It was a movie by the late filmmaker Aravindan. It talked about how electricity came to a village and change happened. That was massive. So we, possibly my generation, lived through a stage, and I love to consider myself old. So my generation went through a change where electricity transformed lives. My generation also went through a change where mobile phones transformed lives. That I think most of you would be aware of. Now we are talking about artificial intelligence or robotics or analytics going to change. That change is also going to happen. But the difference between this and the other two elements were primarily that change happened over a fairly longer time period. This disruption, which is being talked about, is likely to happen in a slightly shorter time frame. So the level of adaptivity of people who are already in the sector, that needs to be ramped up substantially to adapt to this change. The next generation would obviously get into this. The new people who are going to get into the changed ecosystem would adapt for that or prepare themselves for that change. That's not very difficult. The educational institutions should take care of it. The society itself would gear itself to take around it type of thing. But people who are already in this would need to substantively prepare themselves for a rapid change, a quick change type of thing. For Kerala, there are two sides to it. I don't go by this 1% export type of this because export is not what, there is a huge domestic market also in the country. But if you look at Kerala, we have hardly 100,000 people employed in IT directly. Okay, that is, and we have something like 325 lakh people in the state. So that is the ratio. So the change, what is going to affect this 100,000 people, and which is, if it's going to benefit 100,000 people, it definitely should be most welcome and people would adapt to it. Now the opportunity which I see is that we generally, Kerala is a fast learner, is a fast adapter to change, is a very adaptive society. There's a certain level of educational attainment or external connect which we have. So we should, by and large, be able to champion, pioneer, and usher in this change and internalize this change and be the proponents for this change. If that happens and we catalyze change and we actually drive the change in a manner it benefits the larger society, then I think we have a very great opportunity. So I look at this whole disruptive exponential changes which are being talked about as a great opportunity, and what we need to do is to get our act together to leverage this opportunity rather than be scared of this and be defensive about this. We should ride the tide. That is what I feel. I mean, it's good to have that feeling, but what are we doing about it? Yes, I mean, we have been thinking about it, we have been talking about it. In government, there is some level of preparations which have been happening about it. But I'm a bit disappointed in the fact that the industry does not seem to see the imminence of this change. They still think that it is not going to matter to me or it is not going to matter to us. This will just go by, or by the time it happens to us, we will look at it. All of us, Indians by and large, Malus especially, are people who study during the previous day of the exam. If we think that this disruption we can manage by staying awake during the last 24 hours, I think we are in for a shock and surprise.
Right. Okay. So I'll pass it on to Dr. Ashraf. Before that, I just want to ask you a question. How many of you have taken a MOOC? Yeah, a Coursera, Udemy, something, open online courses, yeah? Something related to...
I think you should be more specific. How many of you have enrolled and
completed a course? Okay, so let me ask you that. I know Deepu has. All right. So that's I would say a little scarce for the population that we have here. With that, I'll pass it on to Dr. Ashraf about how education is going to be not all from the universities or the schools. How we should embrace some of these newer ways of learning so that we will better equip ourselves to embrace this change. Ashraf, what do you think? How do you think academia is going to transform, or how should it transform to equip the workforce to this new revolution?
Good, Anup. We are aware that change is imminent, and we have to change ourselves with the context, with the environment. So the key point that I want to state is the critical element is inculcating the culture of learning within an individual. And that has to start with a school, and it has to, if that is not, is already implanted in your mind or brain, you should have a deliberate attempt to inculcate or to have the learning skills or exploratory skills built into your mind, right? Given that, so change is imminent. I'm in a context, I'm a working professional in a particular context, and the first thing that I need to ask is, yes, what is going to change in my context? And I have to reposition myself in that context, and then only I'll become relevant in the changed context. For that, definitely, yes, your social activities of this kind or your connects network would help. Probably you can find out, okay, I am currently doing data, I would say, I'll give an example. I am doing format changes or whatever. Say I'm in the invoice processing department, and invoices comes in different forms. And I write script so that everything is basically converted to uniform format and getting processed, and there's a process by which it's being happening. And now I hear that robots are going to take up my job, called RPA. And the scary part is people are talking about cognitive RPA also. RPA meaning robotic process automation. You can automate things which are repetitive in nature, which is by scripting. Think of a little software which sits inside your computer trying to make out what you're doing, and ultimately deciphering it and creating potentially the script that you would otherwise create. And the machine tries to mimic your behavior and keep on doing it, and later point the machine says, yes, I can do what you do today, and we don't need you, right? That's what the cognitive RPA is all about. So back to my original thought. So I need to know like what's going to change in my context. That's the first thing. So you need to be connected.
What is going to change in a programmer's context?
So
Today I sit and write Java programs or Python scripts or web development. What is going to change in?
So if you look at an area called deep learning, there is published research which says there are deep learning algorithms which can create a script for a given GUI. And this is not sci-fi. There is published work which says, given a particular graphical user interface, the script that would potentially generate it can be generated by a machine. So think of human as a black box, and there is cognitive ability, thinking skills, and there is capability, there's creative capability, which is primarily the result of the cognitive skill. And what this machinery says is, if there is some regularity in your behavior, I as a machine, as an algorithm, can mimic you given or when exposed to enough of the context. And I don't have to have a teacher teaching me what I'm supposed to do. Rather, I'll try to do it. I'll do it better next time. And after a while, I'll be able to mimic what you do, provided there is regularity.
So if I sit at the same machine and do my coding, the machine will understand.
That's what
I'm doing. Yeah.
cognitive RPA.
I should
what
change
I just
my
meant.
machine often.
That's one thing. I should change
That's
my
the whole
style of writing the code. So that's one aspect. So, and how do you identify such opportunities? You should get connected to the people. You should know, look around, get to events, connect socially, and see what's going around in my context. That's first thing. And the second part, once I know like this is what is going to change in my context, I need to have access to content, which can probably, content as well as people, who can probably help me to reposition myself. And that's where I would say both government and academia will have a role. And that's where all these MOOCs and all these guided learning or unguided learning platforms would help. There is content. And that doesn't end there. You may have access to the content, unless otherwise you get an opportunity to practice what you have learned. You will not be equipped to address the challenges that I'll have in the changed context. So that's the third step. And these are the steps where I would say I'm in this ecosystem for the last, I would say, 3.5 years. What's happening is, usually like In the early days, I used to see a lot of students, primarily research students, coming back to me with a publication and saying, okay, sir, I've got this research paper I want to implement and this is what I get. I don't know what's happening outside. Right? Most of the cases, they don't know what's happening outside. On the other end, I've got industry people coming and we have this problem and this is my context, and they never ever come back to me with a paper. And of late, I would say like recently, I started seeing the difference. Where I see industry people coming back with a paper saying like, this is what I do today, and I also see that on the global context, there are research of this kind, which is potentially a threat for me. And how do I reposition myself in the context as a business?
Right.
On the other end, individuals coming back to me saying, okay, there is a research publication, but there's a company or a startup which is doing better than potentially this particular paper, and the paper looks like paper is obsolete because the company's product does a fantastic job when compared to the results which is reported in this paper. So, connect between the industry and the academia is one where if we disrupt, currently what's happening is, yeah, you interact only when you have some opportunities being created. You have a conference, you have a cell which is interacting, but no industrialist immerses themselves into the academia. On the other end, no academicians are forced to work in industry.
Okay.
I may be a little
Ashraf,
exception there, but
Yeah.
that's what is the
Yeah, I need to take a break here. I pass it on to the rest of the panelists.
How
But
many
I-
of you, sorry, how
Yeah.
many of you watch Netflix? Have you guys seen a TV series called Black Mirror?
Black Mirror, anyone?
You guys should.
Yeah.
It's a good wake-up call. And if we haven't frightened you enough at the end of this session, that series will.
Yeah.
Please do watch it.
Black Mirror is a UK production. It talks about all the futuristic technologies, the way the society is going to transform with all the technologies coming into your life. And it's so scary that you'll get freaked out seeing that serial. Coming back, Rahul, I know that in the discussion prior to this, we talked about it. And Rahul is a person who thinks, and I kind of tend to agree, that irrespective of all the reskilling and upskilling that we do for a certain set of people who are going to lose their jobs, there is still going to be a population which might have to remain idle. Or do you?
I will make a significantly stronger statement than
Yeah.
that. Just for making it easy for us to agree, I'll put this thesis out there, that any activity that does not require, any job that does not require creativity or empathy can be automated.
I'm going to ask you, what are those jobs? I'll just.
There's a ton of them. The obvious ones, of course, are things like construction and manufacturing. A lot of blue-collar jobs fall in that category. Okay? But
You mean which will become obsolete?
it doesn't stay with blue-collar jobs. Accounting. Okay? A lot of software development, by the way. Okay? I'm going to argue, does not require too much creativity or empathy. Sorry? Sure. Clinical medicine.
Right.
Okay? It's a strictly decision-making process. Okay? So, and I say that not because creativity and empathy cannot be automated.
No,
There's
I
a
was
lot of.
asking, I was asking, do any of you can come up with a job which requires creativity and empathy?
Of course, I'll give you tons of examples.
Right.
Like,
No, I'm just asking.
Oh, yeah,
I'm just asking. What do you think? What is a job that requires creativity?
Musician.
I don't know. Yeah, there might be. Yeah, there might be people who have. But what else? Huh? What, writing? Writing. Yes, writing a novel, painting a picture.
so
No,
the,
even go
the
ahead.
reason for my suggestion was not to say that jobs that require creativity and empathy cannot be automated. Right? It's easier to agree about the ones that do not require these. Okay, so we'll just for the purpose of this conversation, we'll stay there. Okay? Would you argue with me that most jobs that do not require creativity or empathy can be automated? Right? It's a fair thesis. Okay. Now, look at our population. Okay. One, what percentage of this population participates in pursuits that require creativity or empathy? And secondly, in the span of one generation, what percentage of this population do you think can be sufficiently retrained to become skilled enough to participate in these activities? I might say that in a country like India, generously that's like 30%. Generously. Okay? I mean, 30% is all our urban population. Okay? Generously, that's 30%. So we have a problem on our hands, which is we have a large percentage of our population. And realistically, I think it's going to be less than 10%, by the way. Okay? So, and this is not restricted to India. In the US, this is likely to be something in the vicinity of 50%. Okay? To put it simply, a large number of people who voted Trump fall into this category. Okay? It's an easy classification to make. Not strict, but there is some correlation there. So you have a problem where a large number of people will be, in my opinion, will be automated out, right? And then this becomes a policy issue, okay? And I do not think that reskilling is necessarily a solution here, because jobs as a means of livelihood are probably on their way out. Okay? But we're talking about, this is something that will probably happen over the next 15, 20 years. If we were to take a shorter term approach, 5, 10 years, okay, there's plenty of opportunity out there. There was a question about how is it that, I think the previous question was, how does automation affect software engineers? This is how I'd frame it. The job of a software engineer is to translate human intent into a language that a computer understands. Fair? Right? And computers are not very good with understanding human intent, and so they need strict formalities for the language they understand. Okay? And a very practical example I can give is, the other day I was wondering, driving down the highways, maybe Kerala doesn't have this problem, but in a lot of other states, once you leave the cities, you drive down the highways, you never know when a lorry is going to come hurtling towards you the wrong way. Okay? Now, and these highways, you can't necessarily have it policed all the way. Now, this is something that can be tackled with satellite imaging and drones and all of that. Okay? You want to catch all the guys who are driving the wrong way. And this is a drive, think of the Salem Kanyakumari Expressway. You're driving at 100 kilometers an hour, and suddenly you have a truck coming you the wrong way. Okay? How might the police department actually get into tackling with these drones? Today you need to get programmers in to actually translate this intent. But to explain this to you guys, it's very simple. I want to catch those guys driving the wrong way on the side. That is where potentially we will have work. There is work going on how do you make machines understand human intent? Okay? And the better they get at that, okay, the sooner the job of a software engineer becomes redundant. You want me to go into potential opportunities in the near term?
I want Michael to talk a little bit, because whenever I heard blockchain, I always went back and related it to Bitcoin. For me, blockchain was a technology that was developed to have these cryptocurrencies around, and all this rupee dollar thing will go away. But 2 days back, I got a presentation from 3 IIMK graduates who intend, I don't know if they're here, who intend to start an EMR company based on, EMR is electronic medical records, where, when you go to the hospital, you go to KIMS or something like that, a junior doctor is sitting and typing things into a software system. So they wanted to create a company which will create an EMR which works on blockchain. And for me, what has blockchain to do with health? Or what does it have to do with some of these other things, right? Other than currency or banking to that extent. So you might want to just say that because, we hear all these buzzwords. We hear about AI, we hear about, natural language processing, machine learning, voice recognition. Like the IT secretary rightly pointed out, I walk into my office every day, But I think there is a slight, say, we use WhatsApp to do business communication on a day-to-day basis without even us knowing. We just got adopted to it. So fact of them, and politicians use Facebook to converse with people much more than what they did individually now. So without us realizing, I think technology is slowly crawling into your life. You just don't realize it. You don't see it on a day-to-day fashion, but it is there. It is happening. So what I wanted to ask you, Michael, is that how do you think, because I know that you're a blockchain expert, how do you think blockchain is going to affect not only cryptocurrencies, but some of these other areas like accounting, banking, transactions, healthcare? What do you think about that?
So I'd just like to touch on what Rahul said quickly. Has anyone read or has anyone watched the movie Humans Need Not Apply on YouTube by any chance? Show of hands, just out of curiosity. Wow, cool, okay. Well done. I strongly recommend watching it. It's very important. It's only 12 minutes. So the point that I like to make from that is that I agree that non-creative and non-empathetic jobs will be displaced sooner, but creative jobs are also being displaced at an unprecedented rate. So there are robots now that can create music that's so good that we would not be able to know whether it was a composer that created it or a robot. There are now robots that you can put in information, and they can write your press release for you. They can write your financial statements for you. There are now robots that, and then with the legal profession, the research is a large percentage of the legal profession. There are now robots that can crawl through thousands of pages in seconds to find the exact piece of information that lawyers require. I'm not saying that artists, musicians, and lawyers, as an example, are going to be displaced immediately. And I'm sure there's still going to be lawyers and still going to be artists and still going to be musicians after there are robotic lawyers, musicians, and artists. But I think that...
If I may add to that, there's also algorithms that very successfully can detect human emotion based on voice, pitch, tone, facial expression, pulse oxygenation, heart rate, and so on.
I don't know how many of you saw the news item. Thanks. Sorry for interrupting. I think about 3 weeks ago or a month ago, fashion designers Shane and Peacock, they're a combination, they used AI to design an entire fashion show. Earlier, they would have had to crunch through years of data, what colors work, what lines work, etc., etc. They applied AI, and they got everything in a matter of jiffy, and they had one of the most successful fashion shows. Did any of you see that? Oh, sorry, I forgot. You're not from this planet. Sorry.
Great point. So going back to your question, the reason why I'm so excited about blockchain versus VR or AR or robotics is because I believe that blockchain is the platform that enables VR, robotics, AI to actually be brought to production and to the mainstream. So AI, robotics, and VR is not, they're not new. Machine to machine, we've been working on this kind of thing for years. We just haven't had a platform where machines can communicate with machines and be able to trust the other machine is going to be honest without, autonomously. So blockchain creates that platform for all of these other explosive technologies to actually be taken to the level that they can be. So that's why I'm super excited about blockchain. And to touch quickly about opportunities. So when I was in university, there were no blockchain courses. Right now, there is a single blockchain course that is taught by a professor. It's taught at Princeton. Princeton caters to a very small population. Aside from Princeton, there is a course taught at Berkeley by students. Students that take the course receive credits for the course, the reason why students are teaching the course is because there was not a teacher that could create the syllabus and execute the syllabus. So they left it to the students to take control of the blockchain curriculum at Berkeley. So if you're looking to learn about this, I'm not sure about AI, VR, AR, but I don't think that universities talk about VR or AR either. Maybe AI a little bit, maybe machine learning. But if you're trying to learn about blockchain specifically, really the only place you can learn about it is the internet, is YouTube or Udemy or Coursera or Google. So I think that we can't leave it up to universities to teach us and to teach our children or our population. I think that we need to take the education into our own hands if we're going to learn about the most cutting edge technologies. Yeah.
I think just to sum up, if you've got the drift of all that we have said, one of the things I think we need to take on board is we are responsible for ourselves. We are responsible for us staying relevant in a rapidly changing world. It's not the government's responsibility, it's not the university's responsibility, it's not the parents' responsibility. It is mine. You understand? In an increasingly socially connected world, you are increasingly individual dependent. And who is this individual you're dependent on? Yourself, right? I keep saying this both for employees and entrepreneurs. Sorry, I hijacked your...
No problem.
You know, up until, say, a year ago, 2 years ago, everybody was encouraged to have focus, right? Everybody told you, parents told you, employers told you, your investor told you, everybody told you focus, focus, focus. Okay? In Sanskrit, there is a beautiful word called dhyana. Dhyana is focus. I think time for dhyana is over. Now you're moving to a world where it is not enough just to be a Java programmer, to be this king in your universe. You need to know the rest of the ecosystem as well. So from dhyana, again going back to Sanskrit, you move to a beautiful word called darshana, perspective. If you don't learn to acquire that perspective, and who can teach you? Nobody can teach you. You have to learn it yourself. From dhyana to move to darshana is your responsibility. And know it very clearly, if you don't make this transition, if you don't segue this transition, then you are going to become extremely, extremely irrelevant. And then there is no point crying, blaming the government, playing the IT secretary and playing your, blaming your chief minister. It's not going to cut ice at all.
I'm sure the happiest person walking out of this room would be the IT secretary now that it's been. So I'm going to take a break here and ask.
There was a question.
Oh, sure. Sure, absolutely. No. Just I'll come back to you.
history continues to be true until it stops being true. History can be a very bad predictor of technological future.
I agree with you in the sense, if you remember after the Industrial Revolution also, everybody said man has become irrelevant. Right? But that didn't happen. I agree with you absolutely. So I think the discussion is jobs as we see them today, jobs as we perform today may not be there. 1.5 years ago, The Economist published a cover story on the jobs that will be made redundant by AI. And top of the list was that of the surgeon. Okay. Does it mean no surgeries will happen by the surgeon? No, that's not what it meant. The surgeon's responsibility as we understand it today. But you've already seen that. If you look at Arvind Eye Care, for instance, right? They've made the surgeon's job so narrowed down. The concept of the ophthalmologist as we understood before Arvind Eye Care is already gone out of the window. And change is not something today. 3rd century BC, a Greek philosopher called Pericles said that you can't even put your foot into the same river twice. He had a disciple who was a little smarter than him. He said, you can't even put your foot once. By the time you've thought about it and put your foot in water, water has flowed. So change is not something new. And I think the human brain knows it very well. I also want to make one comment here. I think if there is anybody who will adapt to change brilliantly, it is us Indians. We've always done a brilliant job of adapting, right? In America, they don't know anything beyond their backsides. In India, even an auto rickshaw driver knows to condemn Trump. We've always been aware, we've always been hugely adaptive. Am I right?
Yes.
So I don't think Indians need to worry about it if we continue to remain the same, flexible, aware, curious little monkeys that we've always been in our lives. I don't think we should worry.
Yeah, and greatly so in Kerala.
And greatly
So I'd like to add that it's important to come to events like this to be aware of change before it's trickled into our life. And I think that it's important to be learning about the change that's taking place before it's trickled into our life. Because once it's trickled in, the same way that WhatsApp is trickled in and Facebook is trickled in, with this coming wave, it could be too late.
There are two thought streams going. One stream of people who think that, yes, much like how the Industrial Revolution created a new set of jobs, this revolution is also going to create a new set of jobs. Other side who thinks, and I'm on that other side, who thinks that things like job losses or redundancy is going to happen, and concepts, welfare schemes like the universal basic income, where the IT secretary will pay me irrespective whether I do my job or not. I'm counting on a day when I can just probably when I'm 50 years old, I become redundant and he pays me. Right.
You can become 50 after my tenure.
Yeah, we had one question from the back.
Hi, my name is Vijay. I really love the talk. I just came here half an hour ago. But I know that this is all scary, and we all will try to adapt however we can, brilliantly or adequately. But then there's still a question that lingers. That is about my child and the child that comes after it. That will be like within 50 to 100 years if it stops. What will be the world? Will it be a dystopia where everything just happens, wake up, enjoy the day, go back to sleep? Or will it be apocalyptic world? Wake up and stay fighting, stay alive.
Watch Black Mirror, first episode.
Again,
Seriously.
that is again, you're giving me information, you're not giving me a decision what you want to pick. Will it be a dystopia? It's boring, right? It's boring, but we are still alive. Or will it be a apocalyptic world?
Who knows, yaar? We are not lost.
Yeah, I think, no, I think talking to a bunch of Malayalis about job loss, disruption, and this thing is slightly disquieting. Because I think everybody is relishing the time when they don't have any job but watch TV and start criticizing everything.
I won't complain.
So nobody would complain. So that is how adaptive people in this geography So I'm a bit scared about that. Now, coming back to, my 2 pence on, other than, I didn't hear that part about universal basic income, but from what, see, Rahul pointed about jobs which don't require creativity and empathy are definitely on the block. That's going to get affected fast. Now, the point is, what do you look at jobs which don't require creativity and empathy? If you do a crude calculation, everything can be brought under jobs which don't require creativity and empathy. But I would like to be driven around by a chauffeur who chats me up on Trump, on how his view of Trump type of thing. That gives me a different feel than going in a self-propelled, automated, unmanned vehicle type of thing. I would like my hair to be cut by a barber who talks about everything, the local gossip type of stuff. A farmer who tends to his crops or whatever type of this thing can do it with a lot of empathy. And there are the manana part of it which says that if you love your plant, it gives you an extra coconut or whatever type of thing, and it falls in your head. So every, yeah, won't. So the whole point is that a lot of jobs can be done with lot of passion and creativity and empathy and all the things. We need to look at jobs from a slightly entirely different way. As she was mentioning teachers. Nobody, right now, who become teachers, nobody want to become teachers, everybody want to become IT professionals, but perhaps there is a great charm or great relief in becoming a nurse. Let's forget the surgeons. A nurse who actually tends to a person would be a person who comes. There are a lot of jobs which can be done much, much better. There are a lot of jobs, the present job hierarchy would change substantively and drastically. A lot of things, technology would come to our help in many, many facets and make our life much, much better. Let's not think of doomsday alone. But people who are in this room better watch Black Mirror.
I think that in healthcare, no, can I just break because he had a. Who was asking the question? I didn't. Okay. Just give me 2 seconds. He just wanted a follow-up question.
Okay. This is the last time I want to say. Okay. So you talked about empathy. So in the movie Ex Machina, the robot actually generated empathy to break a human. So you talked about having a barber who talks about the local news to be your genuine friend. Empathy can be programmed.
It's been there in Japan forever.
I was very clear in stating that I did not say that because those cannot be automated. It is just easier to agree on the rest.
If I'm going to make a prediction for what the world's going to be like when we have grandchildren, I think we're going to be interplanetary creatures. I think that humans are going to have a civilization in outer space. I think that we're going to drive around with flying vehicles. I think the roads are going to be solar panels. I think we're not going to use gas, or we're not going to use the traditional, we're not going to use coal or gas for heating. We're going to raise our kids in wombs outside of women with gene splicing so that they can be born to our. I think it's happening. I think that when we have grandchildren, that's 50. Maybe not when we have grandchildren, but our grandchildren's grandchildren. When we're on our deathbed, I think that's going to be the world.
And I will add to that, we will also have non-biological brains augmented to our biological brains. So part of our brains will be silicon.
I agree
and
with
we will
that.
have all the capabilities that come with silicon.
I think that robots will be so developed that we won't know whether we're speaking with a human or a robot.
So it's a dystopia, but a boring one.
I wouldn't say a dystopia. I think it's just the world. It could be utopian. I don't know as people will be unhappy with the world. It's just I think that's where the world's going.
10 years ago, if somebody had told you that the first thing you would do when you opened your eyes would be to pick up your smartphone, you would have laughed. Am I right? No, that behavior adaptation has happened naturally, no? Statistics show that 99.99% of the people who own smartphones, that's the first thing that they do. Yeah, yeah.
I did hope to do that because I grew watching Star Trek.
Right,
They had that iPad stuff.
right.
So I thought, yeah, in the future I will be doing something like that. So that's sort of getting into dystopia.
So I think the point about human behavior is that it is peer approved. Because we live in first of all, we are supposed to be social creatures. Second of all, we have now created a socially connected world around us, right? So increasingly, we don't want to stand out as people who don't conform, right? So if the rest of the world is behaving in a particular fashion, willy-nilly, we also tend to behave in the same fashion. Now, what that behavior is anybody's guess. He can say things, I can say things, all of us can say things, and we can make this huge, whatever, scary world, okay? But that's, at this point in time, it's just fun. Depending on our capacity for punishment and, inflicting self-injury on us, I think we can go the whole hog. End of the day, I don't think any change happens so suddenly that you can't adapt to it. And I don't think change is a bad thing at all, right? That's the only way civilizations can reinvent themselves. I think the day change stops, we die, right?
Can I?
Healthcare, I think that it is not automated. It is not automation is not possible because that health status of an individual is in real time. It is in continuum, so it cannot be automated. We cannot say that substitute a human to treat. The only thing that it will increase the job opportunity because of new that investigation modalities will come. Then that even that consultant will have a machine interpreter. So everything will be double. This job opportunity will be double.
That's a very that's a point that is talked about in Humans Need Not Apply, which I strongly recommend watching in depth. So Watson, you know IBM Watson? IBM Watson's day job is being the best doctor in the world. The reason why I'm confident that's possible is because every day there's tens of thousands of pages of medical documents that are published every day. For you or I, for any doctor, for any person in the world, keeping up with the constant stream of new data is impossible. Not only that, keeping up with the interactions of the thousands of new drugs that come out on the market and how they interact with every other drug, with every type of food, with every climate is also impossible for a human. Unless it's a genetically modified human, but still, let's not talk about that. A robot, Watson, can digest these thousands of pages every day in seconds, and can remember the interactions of every chemical with every other chemical to an exact as exact as is known in the world. So I would rather assume it when Watson goes into production, which is Watson is going into production as a doctor, which is a smartphone app. I would be more confident seeking medical diagnosis from a computer that has every single data point possible to make diagnoses from.
Watch a TV serial called House. If you are on the other side, that is if you are a patient, House is brilliant, okay? But by the time he actually diagnoses correctly and starts medicating, the patient is already on the brink because newer things is happening. If you were the patient, you'd want the robot, doing the diagnosis and the medication.
Even more so in countries like India, where one, doctors do not practice evidence-based medicine. It is experience-based medicine. And secondly, there is no mandatory continuing medical education, unlike in the West. Right?
10 years down the line, medical negligence will be replaced by robotic negligence. Replaced by robotic negligence. What I feel, I mean, on healthcare, what I feel is that, look, no, the point is, look, we lived through a phase when the average life expectancy was 60. The doctors at that point of time had to look at certain set of diseases or certain set of symptoms. Now, because technology changed, investigations, investigative tools happened, better medicines were available, the lifespan has increased from 60 to 80, 85. So at that stage, a new set of conditions have come to forth, which needs to get addressed. So with all these things happening, it may increase from 80 to 100 or 110, and in which case a different set of symptoms or conditions would happen. Perhaps a new generation 2 Watson would have to be built. So it will keep on changing. Change is going to happen, but the point is, how do we ride the change and how do we adapt to the change? That's the short point.
I must tell you an interesting story. Sorry, again. So I've been climbing and trekking for the last 5 years. So December, we decided to do Everest. So at this place called Lukla, where you actually start the climb, we met. December is not the season for anybody to climb. And we decided to climb. We knew it was going to be -20 in the day and -40 at night. But the only reason we decided we will still do it is because, number one, the trail does not look like an ISBT bus stand with the whole janta, there. And number two, there is no cloud cover during that period. So which means you want to look at Everest, you can look at Everest in all her glory. So we decided to do it. Lukla, when we started, we met a number of Australian and Canadian climbers, all in their 20s. I am 57, my partner is 62, okay? All in their 20s, all of them fit, used to climbing, and I made the mistake of chatting them up. And they said they've all done mountaineering expedition training by robots, simulation exercises given by robots. All conditions, all googlies, all possibilities taken care of. So it should be a cakewalk for us, no problem. I'm looking at my partner and saying, okay, I knew we were a little stupid at our ages, but was this idiocy? I mean, this is beyond stupid, right? So Anil, in his typical fashion, said, chalo, try karte. If it doesn't happen, we come back. That's all. So we started. And I'm not exaggerating, guys. That day, nothing much happened, okay? Day 2 onwards, till we actually reached this place, which was just 30 kilometers short of Everest. Every day, we saw helicopters hovering around. Helicopters in that region hovering means rescue operations. Every one of these people, there were 17 of them, every one of them either had altitude sickness or had cramps or had exhaustion or had something else. None of them completed it. Anil and I did not even have a scratch. We did it and we came back. And when we were returning, we met one of them. So I was very bitchy that day. I was also, I was feeling full on happy with myself that at my age I had done it. So when we were returning and we met this 22-year-old girl, I went to her and I said, you know what, that robot that taught you simulation, blah, 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 next time program the robot in such a way, it also teaches you a little bit of humility.
Biological intelligence cannot be replaced by the
Yeah, I just want to add, say for example,
But the sad part is that robot has already been built.
that's true.
So even that is like the collective intelligence of virus, we cannot fight with it.
See, if we have enough of a data point, say for example, you have a scenario where 80% versus 20%, you are a decision maker, and you have enough of a data point to compute to the point that this option is 80%, the other is 20. I mean, you don't need any, what do you call, intelligence. When it comes to say 50-50 or near to that, there's a decision to be taken. And you compute all these with respect to the data that you have access to. And you live in a dynamic world where the data point itself is changing. And if you don't have enough of a data to compute to a scenario where you can have a clear distinction between what to be taken versus what to be avoided, I mean, the human element. Say, for example, if you're getting to that 50-50 scenario, the human element is critical. So that part, no compute can replace. Only the human can take a
All right.
decision out there.
Any other questions from the audience? You have?
Hi, my name is Nishant. So this is going to be a layman's question. I'm not much of a tech guy. So all throughout the day, we have been talking about disruptions that is being happening and that is about to happen uh, in the technological field. But little on discussion has been done about the data security part of it. Are we heading to a stage where in which there won't be any walls by data security and by data privacy is not needed, or is it one in which the data security has to also evolve and there has to be a disruptive pattern in that as well? I want your thoughts on that.
Michael, you want to take that question?
Data security is going to be a rocketing business for the foreseeable future. Actually, for probably our lifetimes, data security is going to be increasingly important. As more and more information is put online and on blockchains, as your entire wealth is put on blockchains, as government wealth and government data is put online, storing your data securely is going to be increasingly important.
And with encryption, so I don't know how many of you have heard of something called homomorphic computing. Anyone? No? Okay, so it's the ability to do, it's technology to do computation on encrypted data without decrypting. Okay? Unfortunately, it was actually first shown to be possible at Stanford in 2007. Craig Gentry's PhD thesis showed this. It was actually someone's PhD thesis to do this. And now technology has progressed, but it hasn't reached the level of being practical yet. But the hope is that it will be practical such that with enough compute and memory and better algorithms, you have the potential to do compute on strictly encrypted data, ensuring security and privacy. And this might, can I add something? This might be actually a good point to also, I feel a little bad that we've been talking about doomsday all now, right?
Near term, what should we do?
Yeah.
What are the opportunities?
I think that if we'll take a 10-year perspective here, someone mentioned, there was actually multiple mentions of dystopia. And then there was Star Trek, right? Now, Star Trek, to me, is utopia, not dystopia, right? So the line between utopia and dystopia, can be subjective. If you take a 10-year perspective, there's many opportunities out there. There's great potential to engineer abundance around us. And that's what many of these technologies are talking about, engineered abundance. You have the potential to solve the energy problem. We know that, especially in countries like ours, we have to have healthcare without doctors. We have to have education without teachers. Right? We need to transact without banks. Right? And there's no shortage of these problems that exist around there. These are all exciting possibilities that can be tackled with these new technologies. And those of us who leap on those opportunities have a lot to gain from that.
Yeah, I need to strongly agree with Rahul here. I'm not trying to present a doomsday scenario with where I think technology is going. I think I'm realistic with where technology is going, but I don't think that it's a bad thing at all. I just think it's what it is, and we can choose to view it however we want. I personally think that it will create abundance in the world. So like Rahul said, I think we're going to solve the energy crisis. We're going to solve the food problem. We're going to solve the traffic problem, water salination problem. I think that if you don't want to work, you'll have universal basic income, and you'll be able to do whatever you want all the time. I think that looking at it from a negative perspective is the wrong way to look at it. I think that the right way to look at it is this is inevitable, and let's make the best of it that we can.
Just to add to that, on the blockchain side, currently what's happening is the entire data is getting onto the cloud, meaning centralized. You aggregate data over a centralized platform, and you build experience on top of it. With the blockchain thing coming in, it's talking about distributed. You don't have to send data somewhere else. You can be a part of a network where you don't even have to give access of your data to somebody else. You can only permit somebody to verify that whether you talk sense, whether your data is credible data, rather than you exposing your data. So such mechanisms being talked about. So you have a platform, say for example blockchain, which enables you to distribute your data. And on top of it, if you can build experiences, say for example, other day I was talking about this adapt, basically the autonomous organizations where you can build what you call appliances which can talk to each other in the neighborhood without sharing, without connecting to the internet and pushing data to the internet in the way the typical IoT environment does. You can have a data platform which is distributed, and you can plug in devices, appliances on top of it, where the appliances can collaborate and virtually integrate themselves and function with local collaboration alone. So the opportunity, back to your question, data security, with the newer platforms in place, you can build mechanisms where you don't have to even share your data. You can have mechanisms where you can give access to your data to the extent that's needed without even revealing the details of it.
Right.
So,
And for the moment, even if we were to assume that it's doomsday scenario, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, nothing. Just
Learn to deal with
wish
it.
for UBI.
Absolutely, just learn to.
Manage
That's
the
it.
doomsday.
Yeah, I mean, you can talk till the cows come home. Yeah, it isn't going to make any difference to anybody. Change, whatever fashion is going to happen, is going to happen. The only way you can sit on top of it is by learning to deal with it.
Right.
If you
I'm
don't-
gonna have to interrupt. It's all 15 minutes past the time that has been allocated to us. So I'm gonna just wind up by saying that hey, there was a time when in the morning I would read the entire newspaper, probably two or three of them, that comes to my house with couple of mugs of coffee. It has changed. Now I just go to News Hunt and just flip over the news things. No, that's okay. I'll leave it at that. What I was trying to say is that change is coming in. Change is happening around you. The way you behave, the way you communicate, the way you make friends, the way you date, the way you find your partner, everything has changed from what it was 10 years back to today. It is again going to change, and the change is going to be exponentially bigger. That is the idea. So it will come like a tsunami. Like she said, we can just say, it's going to happen anyways. So let's just face it. We can also say, what is going to happen? Let me just get out of my comfort zone of the Java programmer or the web developer or whoever I am, a .NET programmer, and just try to learn a little bit of that change and make the most out of that change. That is what probably we should all do as an outcome of this particular interaction that we have had. At least, a couple of things that I would suggest you guys do. Watch Black Mirror on Netflix. Watch the movie Her. I don't know if anybody has seen Her. Yeah. Watch the movie Her.
And ask more questions when somebody
Right. And also try to take one course, anything. It could be just creative writing, painting, creating PowerPoint. Not in mountaineering, of course. But I'm actually kind of jealous of you in this, that you did it with Everest. I was thinking that, me and my partner, we went way beyond them and then came back. I never thought the summit would have happened, actually. But that's amazing. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to us and spending time and making it a very interactive session. And I would like to also thank FAYA for organizing such a wonderful session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure everyone would agree that it was a wonderful discussion. I now request Mr. Anu Babika to hand over tokens of appreciation to our panelists.
Michael, you must have gotten all of it.
We have also.
You can take two. Yeah. There we go. Thank you so much. No. You have. Thank you. It's a real VR hit. So.
I got one more.
Let me just stand close to her and say that I went to Everest.
I also request Mr. Sujitoni from NASCOM to present our token of appreciation to Mr. Anuba.
Sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, I remind you again that 5 questions have been posted on our Twitter handle with the tag BK17QZ. Post your answers